so we're starting. Welcome to my session. The topic is creating solid content structure, content architecture based on design patterns. So the focus of this talk, or where I'm actually going to show you some stuff, how we do it in our company, is the second part. I mean, it's the part about the content structure. But in order to get there, we have to look at design systems before, so we're all on the same page. Before we go in, quickly about us. So we are 1x Internet. I am Christoph. I'm one of the co-founders. And we focus on Drupal and React development, as well as digital strategy, online marketing, and Drupal hosting. Here's a photo of our team. This was taken last year here in Conil. So we have an office here in Conil, actually down the road. And we do once per year a team event. And this was taken in the team event. It's not the full team, but was the participants. And so we're international. You see Ruben there on the side, he's Spanish. You see David, he's here, he's also Spanish. He's sitting somewhere there. And then you have like Ukrainians, Belgian guy, a girl from Hungary, guy from Pakistan, Bati, I'm married to her, she's from Iceland, and Spanish guy, Swedish guy, another Icelander. So we're international, and yeah, our company language is broken English. I've put some logos on top here. I'm not going to talk about this in this talk, but we work a lot with distributions, and these are the distribution projects where we heavily involved in, and that's something we really enjoy doing. For this talk, it is about how we architect Drupal 8 websites, and it's highly opinionated what I'm going to tell you. So I'm not telling you anything that's the best way. I'm not telling you that's the right way. I'm just telling you that's our way, because we feel that when we build websites in the same way, we have lots of benefits: easier to maintain, easier to build, easier to collaborate, and such. And this is what I want to show you today. The agenda is as follows. So we'll first talk a little bit about design systems, because design systems is a fairly new concept to many, and it's important for the course of this talk that we're all on the same page here about this. Then we're moving from design systems to design patterns, and from there to content architecture. Okay, we're going straight into design systems. Design systems is the thing nowadays, how to build front ends. Everybody does it. The reason I put you this slide is to point you to some very well-known, very famous design systems, to make clear to you that's not something we do, it's not something fancy, it's not something from Drupal, or it's not something any of this. It's just the way how, when you just build modern web designs across very many devices, also not online, also on other channels, like how you actually organize things. So what is a design system? Easiest thing to take a look would actually be to look at one. So I've picked here Carbon design system, is this one here, right? You see that here. So Carbon design system is the design system from IBM, right? So you see that, oh, come on, down. So you see that here, that's just from IBM, and this is like how IBM builds their design. So the page I've opened here for you is about a modal, right? Modal is what we in Drupal call an overlay, right? So probably when you talk about Drupal, so you open the overlay. So they call this a modal, right? So let's look at what modals look like in Carbon design systems. If I'll show it here. This is what the standard modal looks like. So it has has an optional label up there, has then a modal heading, has some text, and has a primary and a secondary button, right? However, that's not the only modal that exists. So there's also a danger modal. Danger modal works much the same way, except the primary button is now red because it's danger. So what other modals exist in Carbon design systems? Look more what we have. Okay, input can be collected with modals as well. So an input modal would look like this. And some more. So why am I stressing like this example with modal? It's because of what you call it, right? I said in Drupal we call this overlay. They call this modal. If we have agreed on that this is a modal, then if I say, hey, there's something wrong with the modal, everybody in the room knows what I'm talking about. And also, if I say in the danger modal, the red is too bright, it doesn't have enough contrast for accessibility, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Otherwise, if you don't have this, you would say, well, in this overlay that we have, sometimes when it's red, I think like the button on the left side, that's a bit too bright. There's too much room for confusion. That's why this is important. So what design systems really are, they are a common language for all stakeholders that are involved with working with the design, so they can know what they talk about. right? That's also, there were some other talks like earlier today, and you find them actually at all events. And this is like really the key message. You have designers, you have product managers, you have end users, you have web developers, but also print designers that do whatever, and they need to know what is it that I'm actually designing here, what is it called, you know, and how can I use it. How can I use it is the next thing. So you see here usage is described. Not going to go into detail here for this now, but like together with what a design component or a pattern actually is, you know, comes the usage. This is supposed to be used when danger occurs. We want to show danger with modals, you know, with a big fat red button, right? This is the design idea that was behind this thing, I assume. You know, we're not using it, this is just what I'm assuming. And then the next thing to make this really, really perfect for using is that users actually distribute the code for creating that with your design system. So you see here the vanilla JS code of exactly this modal that you saw there. You have the React version of it, the Angular version on it, the Vue version on it, and like a code pen to play around. Right? It's really cool. So next thing is, so let's actually look at a couple of more, because I want to show you this one here is a really simple one. Right? This is an accordion. Accordion exists everywhere. This is an accordion, right? So what more can we just have? Actually, let's look at buttons. Buttons are always fun to look at. Right? So you have different types of buttons, you know, primary buttons, you have secondary buttons, right? Tertiary buttons, however you pronounce that. You know, so, and again, you have, just for a simple button, you have all these, you know, descriptions, usage, and code for this, and you mix and match it together. For example, you saw that this button, the primary button, was part of the modal. Right? So like somebody made the button, somebody said, okay, we have a primary button and a secondary button, and the next person who built the modal used the primary and the secondary button and put them next to each other. If the button works perfectly, across all sizes, for accessibility, for everything, it also works in the modal. And the modal, if that works, whenever any other pattern that it includes, it will also work. So this is what design systems are. Going back to the presentation. So this is the quote that always comes. Actually, I think Felix, if you're here, oh there you are. You said like you're not going to show this quote because it's so cheesy. So I have this quote here that's really cheesy. But I think you were talking about caching, so I assume you mean the caching invalidation part of it. I mean the naming part of it. Like really, that's the thing. Like if you just build a design and you get like a web design from your designers and you just look through it and you just have to start naming what is that? What I'm drawing a little box here. What is that? That's just really hard, right? And so, because of this, I want to play with you a naming game, okay? So here you see a couple of things. What is this called? Anyone? I hear hero, I hear slideshow. Okay, good. What is this called? Breadcrumb, good one. This one here? Heading? Okay, what's the difference between the headings here? Main heading I hear, main title I hear. So what's the difference between this and this? What is that? Well, how could you call it? You know, explain to somebody this one's wrong. So we name it like this. So we call this up here carousel. We call the breadcrumb the breadcrumb. We call headings headings, but we say this is heading H1, heading H2, because the way we want to have it is because it's also for search engine optimization, so we immediately put that into the name, you know. I don't know if it's a good idea, but that's how we do it. And then we have a text block, and the text block can be narrow, can be normal. Actually, I should maybe say text block wide, text block full, or text block narrow. Right? Okay, next round. Ooh, this looks different. What's it called now? Hero slider, good one. That's what we do too. So we will call this one a hero carousel, and the one before we will call like a banner carousel. That's how what we would do it. I have another good one for you. Okay, you see here the heading. What is that above the heading? What's that called? Caption, you say? Anyone else? And also, and this below the heading, what's that called?
Subtitle.
Subtitle, you say? Okay. All right. So. Oh, and then we have, okay, this one's, I'm not going to play on this. So we call this one here the eyebrow. We call this one the eyebrow, right? So I heard this actually from the guys from MediaCurrent and DrupalCon Seattle. I think that's really intuitive. Like you have something, there's an eyebrow on top of it. You know, you can use this here for dates. You can use this for all kinds of things. You know, in Carbon Design System, it was called optional label. So we call it eyebrow. We like that. And, well, the other one we just call heading, and then there's a subheading below. And then, like, we have media elements and full and narrow, right? So that's how we would do it. Yeah, okay. Last one. Last naming slide. So what are these called? Cards? Yeah, that's what we call them too. So if you call them cards, you would call them, this is a small card and it's a medium card. Okay. So let's go from naming to actually design patterns. So I said this earlier, like with a button that goes together to a modal that goes into, you know, this is also referred to as atomic design, because you can think of atomic design as being something that is small, like a button, that could be combined with other things, like, for example, the eyebrow, the heading, a text, primary, secondary button, and a box that could be combined into something bigger, like a modal, for example. And that, again, a modal, or like, say, if you have a card that's bigger, like a series of cards, you know, that would then be an organism. You know, it's just the next level of evolution or chemistry, so to speak. And that together makes templates, and that together makes pages. This is just what atomic design is. It's really powerful. If you just require from the designs you get that they are actually atomic, that you can name your elements in your design, and then you can move this actually into implementation with a pattern like this, it becomes really, really nice for the front-end developers. Okay, let's look at some real stuff here. So what we do. So here, this is actually from a currently running project. So let's look at the design system we're building up for these guys. So it's a company called Transgourmet, and we have here, for example, the buttons. Right? So here's like all button styles, and you have here, so I'm going to give you a link to like the technology behind this here in a second. It's Pattern Lab and particle theme, and so what it actually does, it distributes this together with a Twig template to generate this. Getting back to this in a second. Let's look at some more things what we have here. For the molecules, we have, for example, our cards. This is what cards look like in this project. You have different kinds of cards, you know, like with video, with text, with different icons on it. So it's here food beverages. So if it's alcohol, then you need to hide it first, you know, so you have cards in there. And where there's cards, you also have like carousels, you know, so here you have all the different types of carousels that exist. And like if you move through, we also put complicated stuff, or like that has much functionality. We actually also put this into our, we also built this as a pattern. So here, for example, you see like animated JavaScript component is built with React, and here Mapbox, you know, so if we want to search for a market, for example, close to Berlin, right? Boom, you would just do this. So that's also created here. So the cool thing, what I'm getting to you at this moment, is that like development here happens outside of Drupal completely. You know, we have a language, we have like stuff together, and we have this here, and we build front end. We don't build Drupal at this point in time. So this tooling here, what you see is really nice because, for example, let's go here to Pages, View All. So here in this project, it's really can turn on disco mode. So because also what it just does for you, it just helps you to just like check different, you know, how this behaves and different viewport sizes and stuff. And that really allows you to, so in this particular case, we built the design, the style, we built up the design system and then this style guide before we even started the implementation of the project. Okay. So, another cool thing I want to show you is actually, I'm just going to take you to. So like here you see, like what I just have here, like you can also run visual regression tests on your patterns. You see, for example, let's look here. So like I ran on every single pattern we run, like when we deploy to stage, we run a regression test on every single pattern. You see, like out of like 200, 300 patterns, I have 186 that actually have a visual regression on it. So let's take a look what actually happened here. So if you go here, okay. So you see what we did, we changed the font size. Do you see lorem ipsum changing? That's why we have 186 regressions, because this font occurs in every single pattern. You know, this is really, really awesome, because if you just do your visual regression testing on the pattern level, it doesn't even go into production. right? And like this actually allows us to catch when we make small changes. I mean, you all know this. Your client says change the button color from red to green or move the button from right to left in the footer region, and you do it, and suddenly, boom, your website breaks, right? Because of some stuff that was not done right. And this you completely catch here. Okay. Ooh. Oh. Stay here. Yeah. So the way you connect this with Drupal is the Twig template. So you saw for every single pattern, there's a Twig template available. In Twig, you can just include other templates. So in my Drupal template, I just include the Twig template from the design system. And I pass the variables onto it, and it just works. So the interface between these two guys here is super clear. They know exactly what they're doing. The only thing that they need to do, like in our case, it's not even defined if backend or front end does it, right? So parameters are just passed. And actually, we do use GraphQL and Twig for doing this, not in all cases, so it like really depends on how we do it. And but this has really streamlined the way we can work a lot. Okay, are we all on the same page until here? Are there questions now? Because yeah? Okay, good. So now moving then to content architecture and how this relates. So we work with entities only. Everything we display is an entity. In particular, we like to use fieldable entities because we don't want to lose like the flexibility of using Drupal UI or site building capabilities when we work with entities. But this is what we use. And the only entities we use when we architect, I mean, never say never, right? I mean, there's cases where we do different things as well. But like in general, like we use these 5: content types, media, paragraphs, custom entities, and taxonomies. So let's run through how we use it. So for us, a content type is something that's a page. Something that has a URL that you can access, right? News/news press release from blah, 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 something like this, right? And different content types we only create if there's different mandatory fields on the content type. So let's say you have something called a basic page. For content stuff, we put paragraphs in there. You will see this later. But if paragraphs is just not what's the difference between the two, then this would make up another content type. Perfect example for this would be actually news and event, because a news is a page that has a date, and an event is a page that has a date and a time and a location, right? So that's how this is. If this is true, then we make something when we do architecture, we make this a content type. We define it as a content type. We use media, very strict when it is a media. I mean, Drupal entities, everything can be used for everything, So like you need to kind of have rules how to build. We use media only when it's media. And media means it's an image, it's a video, it's an audio, or it's a file. It's basically everything that you could display in a classical media center. You know how you have on big pages, like, go to all the videos and da-da-da, this kind of thing. So here it's really strict. We use media only for media. By default, we restrict access to media because the use case is not so often that you actually want people to access your video directly. You rather want to put the video somewhere in content, to have this in context and stuff. But could be that you have a media center available. Okay, and for the content, we use paragraphs. And we use paragraphs for entities that only live inside of host entities. I'm fully aware of there exist modules like Paragraphs Library where you can have reusable paragraphs and stuff like this. This is not the point. The point is, like, from architectural perspective, when you just actually build your content structure, you need to have some guidelines how you create your stuff. And the way we do it, we say paragraphs is by us, something that we use on a page that only lives as long as the host entity lives. So when I delete the page, paragraphs die. Typical examples would be, here, the carousel that we saw earlier, which could be like paragraph in paragraph, right? The carousel and then the slides in there. Or the accordion, maybe accordion container, then inside accordion with question answer or title, body stuff. Text fields, media references. We use this really for everything. So like when you place a block, we place this with a paragraph. When we place a view on a page, we never make pages. We never make view and use like the page display for it with a UL. We never do that. So we would always like make a page, put a paragraph on there, reference a view and display it with the correct view display that we want to have. Same for block reference and everything else. We use custom entities where we don't, for reusable entities that are not media. Right? Because you have like other things that are also reusable that you just want to just like an image drop on a page in multiple places, but it's not media. I mean, because it's not media, a person is just not media, or an address also not media. But for example, if you have like a product page, you have like maybe the sales agent or something that's shown on very many pages. Of course, you want to, when you change the image, the photo of the person or the telephone number or something, that should be just updated everywhere. So it's a reusable entity. And here's one that is just not media. So we're aware of that. You then lose like the Drupal built-in core, that you have media management, the views and all this stuff, you know. But for this, we just build it ourselves. We just make like easy management interfaces, use inline entity forms for editing and stuff. So we have like a really neat way of just doing this. And this is what we use custom entities for. And last, taxonomies are only for classifying things. So we don't make a taxonomy that is like a product or something and then just show it or so, or we just like put any like information inside of a taxonomy. I mean, you could. We've done it in the past, you know, but like how we architect at the moment, we make this only for classification, you know, like copyright or like tagging or whatever it is. And we turn off that you click on a taxonomy term and you get like a listing of the page. We don't want that. We don't want this functionality. If we want to place a list, we want to place it with a paragraph. Okay. When we then model, this is exactly how we do it. So that's actually a real data model from the Transformate project that you saw before in an early version and reduced to fit the screen. But that's exactly how we would build it up. So you see like a content type page there, and like in this case, you know, page as a title. Since we always have cards of pages, we typically have like a preview text and a preview image, because otherwise you can't make your card, right? And then in the design for this, we have always on the header like something that we want to display. So therefore we have header paragraphs, you know, and we have content paragraphs. And you see here in the header paragraph, see, we put in a slideshow, and a slideshow can consist of image slide, but can also consist of video slide. Right, and a video slide just has an image, and image slides obviously also has an image. Right, in the content paragraphs we have then more, we have text blocks, we have media references, and so on. So having this common understanding of how to architect lets us build this stuff just rather quickly, and you can really easily take something like this here and just, you know, put it next to your design and just check this particular component here, what is it in my backend? And that actually helps us a lot. Here you see also an example of a custom entity that would be in this case a catalog, you know, which is catalog's not a media, or maybe it could be media, I don't know, like maybe edge case, you know, but here in how we've made it, so this is not part of media, so this is then custom entity. And since they are all entities, the view modes of the entities are our patterns. That is really here. This is really the main message. If you make this really, really strict, everything you display is an entity. Every entity has some fields. Every entity has different view modes. You know, you have your design system with your patterns. You know, and every single view mode maps to exactly one pattern. And that makes development of content architecture really easy. Showing you some live examples of how this works. So it's for a recent project, which we're going to look at in a second. These are the paragraphs we have there. So you have German, you know, so it's text, image and text, media, slideshow, events, block embed, reference a page. Do this whole thing in 2 columns. Think about it. You have this, and you put this whole thing in 2 columns. You can make really many layouts. You know, if you just do this kind of things. And here's mood board, you know, and like here the accordion. This is FAQ, right? This is actually accordion. Accordion FAQ is the same thing. FAQ is not FAQ. FAQ is an accordion because it's just text and something below, you know. And iframe. So this is what we have. And as an example, we would have like the image text paragraph that would just really just look like that. You know, here you have an image that is just picked from the media management, and you have text with like all kinds of settings. That's what we allowed or what we have by default when we build stuff. And when it display, it would just look like this. So what you saw here is there's a setting here on the bottom. It says image left, right. So that we would just like pass along to the to the display. I don't know if it's 2 displays or 1, but it's passed along. So it's stored together with this particular entity. And that then renders this piece of content, using the templates from the design system with the image on the right and the left side. So, real example. It's a website that actually launched not so long ago. So it's a shipping company in Germany on like one of the lakes that just operates like all kinds of ships and transfer across the lake and stuff. And here you see this. You see card types. Right, so you have this type of a card, like 3 cards in a row. You have here actually a slideshow here, except that this slideshow only contains 1 slide. Therefore, this slideshow doesn't render as a slideshow, or this carousel doesn't render, or it renders as an image. And here you have different cards. You have 4 cards next to each other. And here you have then a slideshow again. Here's some text. Here's a form. We drop in forms with block references as well. So web form to block reference to paragraph with block. Drop it in here. Put it wherever you want. Make it wide. Make it narrow. Make it 2 columns. And here's some more blocks that you drop in. This here like for weather forecasts. So if we look at the style guide for it, you see I'm on the same URL. So here's bsb.de. And I'm also here again, bsb.de. So in this particular case here, like they don't have in what I showed you before from Transcomer, like really the style guide lives in a separate repository and is shipped separately from the website, because they will actually build a distribution, and we built multiple websites that all use the same design system. In this particular case here, it lives in the same repository. That's why you see it in the same URL. It doesn't have to be like this, but by default, because we built everything that way, that's how we set up our projects by default. So in here I've linked exactly to the image text paragraph that you saw. So this text here, this is exactly what I showed you in the screenshot, because I took the screenshot from this website, creating some demo content, and you see this with right and left. Okay. Questions so far? Well, I'll go to final thoughts, and then we take up a discussion if okay. So, what are the advantages? So I think I hope I've gotten this across. It's a unified way to model content, so there's no more questions, right? It undergoes change all the time. So when we, like, for example, somebody speaking? Okay, it wasn't me. So we used to use media differently. We used to allow for media also other things that were not media. We've just changed this. That's why we have introduced custom entity, right? So it undergoes change, but this change is just made like together with the team. So we always have like a unified way how we build stuff. It's really easy to understand for developers and project managers if you think in patterns and you build it like this. And it's also really easy to understand how this maps to, is it a paragraph, is it a page, is it the media, is it the custom, or is it a taxonomy? The handover we have very happy backend and front-end developers, because the handover is really clear. And it's easy to adapt, change your design system, and the website still works, and you just roll it out. And like if the variables are the same, this looks different. So like this is gone with a button right left and your website breaks. It's highly reusable. You can use it for many. You can repeat what you do. And it's much, much easier to maintain than coupled front ends, right? Because of the button right left thing. And it's very easy to test. But, so top one, I'll say the top one the last. Let's take the second one here. Decoupled front ends are a bit more complex, because you have a front end, you have a back end, and you have the glue between. So you're suddenly thinking 3 ways. So when you start doing this, you will first scratch your head a little bit until you're just fully in it. But as soon as you are in it, you will feel the power of it, and why this is like how front ends are built these days. Then we have the question, this is here for Fran, this is exactly what he was talking about, like what's now the best way to integrate like front end and back end, because there are very many ways. So we have like theme functions, we have like GraphQL Twig, we have like all kinds of things that we can do. And so we have ongoing discussion in our company how to best do it. So it's not 100% solved, but like as I told you, this is exactly what we're discussing at the moment. Then what I often hear, maybe what you're thinking, is this too strict? Like should it be so strict? Well, it depends on your project. I think it's very helpful for content architect or like architects in general to model content like this and start from here and then just really review your requirements of your project and see if you need to deviate from this or if you need to do it differently. There has to be good reason for it. It shouldn't just be allowed to just do it differently just because, so, but it is strict. It's opinionated, it's strict. And the last one here on top is what about Layout Builder? So you're probably all aware of that Layout Builder is going into Core. Massive resource is especially put in from Acquia into Layout Builder. And with Layout Builder, some drawbacks of paragraphs are supposed to be overcome. I'm not going into detail now. It's very powerful. It's very cool. It's very new. And so for us at the moment, we are looking at Layout Builder, how to actually, where does paragraphs and Layout Builder, how does this play together? We haven't solved it yet. So it's another cool tool to be considered. Probably in a year, you will be using this to some extent, but at the moment, I couldn't say anything else. This was it. And question and answers. Floor is yours. Yes?
So in your pattern-like approach, do you go the way where you build markup around the existing event arrays and still utilize things like queue commanders and benefits from people? Or you go the way where you strip most of those things and build your own toolkit, for example, lazy loading via custom JavaScript code and external libraries rather than functions?
So the question was if we just have it really fully decoupled and build everything again on the front end side, for example, even stuff that you get ready on the Drupal end, if you just really recreate it. And you asked as an example, how about lazy loading? How would you do that? So it's a very good question. We try to reuse as much as we can. We're not trying to. We're not technically strict in a way. It has to be like that, otherwise it's wrong. It's just we try to go the easiest way, use what's best possible. For your image lazy loading example, there we actually do have a custom module that actually works with responsive image, where we just make lazy loading with small images that get blown up and get replaced, and so there we have something custom that we use, and in that particular case it would be custom. In other cases we would just reuse what we get. So for example, if you maybe get a URL or so, it's a bit of a complex entity that you get passed. Actually, I'm not sure how this is done in the latest version. Maybe it's fetched with GraphQL Twig or preprocessed to just only deliver the URL, but maybe it also takes the default markup that Drupal produces. Yeah, you had a question too?
I wanted to ask you about custom entities and taxonomies. I just realized two months ago that in taxonomy we can have a structure, a data structure. I don't know the reason why don't you use taxonomy like a custom entity, because it's already there to create. I never understood why it's not possible to create a custom entity just clicking. I don't know.
No, I think it's good. It's a good question. So the question was why make a custom entity? You have taxonomy and you could just use it, So isn't that a little bit? Well, that's exactly the question you have to ask yourself. So if you use taxonomy for holding content, and you also need pure classification on your website, for example, red, green, and blue, something can be. And on the other side, you have something more complex, like a recipe for food. And if both is taxonomies, then it's unclear, what is used for what. And the only reason why we say taxonomy only for classification is to get rid of this confusion. That's the only reason. Regarding the second aspect of your question, because you have something that's ready where you can just click it, and custom entity, you have to make it first. Thing is, making custom entities is really easy. Once you have this figured out how you create it, you can make them fieldable as well. So there's actually console command where you boom, you put it in, you ship the configuration, and then for the rest you can just really do in the UI. So if you have this incorporated in your process, it really quickly starts feeling very natural to just use this when you just create an entity that is not taxonomy, not media, and not page. More questions? Sina.
What's the difference between a paragraph and a custom entity? What triggers using one?
Paragraph, the only difference is that paragraph dies when you delete the host entity. That's the only thing, because you always have the problem if you just make an entity that's used in different places. You know, the editor comes and says, oh, this picture is ugly, boof, change it, and somewhere else it breaks, right? And we want to have this clear. We want to know that on this page I'm building something and I'm adding a picture. When I play around with this page, when I press edit on this page, I can do whatever. It will not affect anything else. If I click on the paragraph there, it does not affect anything else. So if I delete this, it goes away and it's gone, right? That is the difference. It's just in the head, you know, it's really clear then to everyone. Yes, more questions? Yes, please.
So yeah, I had basically two questions. They are mutually connected to some point. So the first question is related to productivity. So because you already showed a lot of components that look pretty much the same in every single website you would probably try.
Yeah.
Do you have a repository of config or designs or both, so that you can be more productive when you are, you know, building multiple websites in a short period of time?
Yeah.
And second question is, how do you manage the change in terms of, okay, so these are today's standards and they're totally logical. So tomorrow we're going to decide that you are going to, well, front-end changes super fast. And do you have procedures in place to manage those changes? Especially in terms of like retroactive projects that you now need to maintain in parallel.
Both questions really good. Let's take the first one. Hang on, I'm confused. What was the first one again?
Sorry?
What was the first one again?
So the first one is repository for
reusability. Yes. So let's take. So the question is like, if we build something, how can we just reuse it best? You know, like, do we have this somewhere in a repository that we can use? So internally, we have our own distribution that we use, and there we put our best practices in. So when we start up a project, you get actually much of what I showed you. You probably get 80% pre-configured, including the style guide, you know, with the design system and everything there, because buttons are buttons, carousels are carousels, FAQ and stuff, and we actually turn off what the client doesn't want, and we just have it, and then we take it and we tweak it for the design. So yes, we do. This is how we do it, and I think this is a good way of just using the distribution mechanism that Drupal actually offers to just actually pre-package your stuff and maintain it in a place. We don't use our distribution as a real, as a product distribution that we then just update across all clients. We use it as a starting kit, you know. So today this is our best practice. We have something really awesome available. We install it. We have all the knowledge from that's, you know, like with the lazy loading latest that we just built not so long ago, that would just already be there, right? So to the second question, change management, yes. So that was implicit. We use it as a starting point, and we don't have any backwards compatibility for just rolling out things. So like we manage change in the same way how we managed change before we did any of this. So old ugly websites that we built 3 years ago, we still have to maintain, you know, and there we just see all the goofiness and the hackish things that we did, and we just have to deal with it. It's getting, though, a lot better, because if you just have really strict standards how you build stuff, maintainability becomes better. But we have not figured out any ways how to maybe backwards merge, upgrade stuff. That would be really awesome, but I have no idea how this could be done. Okay? More? Yes?
You said you hide from, for users, like, for example, the taxonomy change.
Yeah.
I'm just curious how you do that. Do you
call small custom module where we just like turn off access. So like here, Drupal 8 has a super API. You know, if you just used to UI and not so much API yet, which I'm not saying you do or anything, but like this is really, really cool. If you just have this great under control, you just make all these little modules. Like in our distribution that we ship, you know, there are some small modules in there. Just make like our little tweaks, you know. Don't access my media directly unless I allow you. Don't access my taxonomy term. Hide this field, which we think doesn't make any sense. You know, do this and that. And yeah, more? Yes.
Any reason why you use Paragon and not bricks?
And not what?
Bricks?
Because paragraphs is, the question is why we use paragraph and not bricks. No particular reason except that paragraphs is just very big. We build it so we co-maintain the eGov distribution is built on paragraphs. Thunder distribution is built on paragraphs, and has very strong community behind it. It's maintained by a Swiss company called MD Systems, and they're just really good in everything what they do. And I think Amazee builds with Paragraph as well, like what I've seen at least. Right, yeah, you do it too. So everybody kind of does it, and that's why we do it, to benefit like from the power of the community. That's actually also like with this layout builder, what I showed. This is actually the main thing why we are not so strong into layout builder yet. Because it's great, it's cool, it's new, but like we're using something at the moment that's really well proven, has some caveats, but yeah. More questions? So then, thank you again for your attention, and I'm around, so you can ask me anything if you see me anywhere. Thanks.